afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. This afternoon, we have 4 bills that I would like to be able to work. First one would be House Bill 2193. Reviser Wagner, would you brief us on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee House Bill 2193 would make changes to suspended driver's license requirements. Under current law, there's an additional suspension period if someone is convicted, or if the division receives a record of conviction of someone when they're driving while their license is suspended, canceled, or revoked. That period under current law is an additional 90 days. This bill would decrease that period to 30 days. And also then for anyone who was guilty of the failure to comply traffic citation statute, that additional suspension won't apply under this bill. And then Section 2 would strike application fees associated with requests for restricted driving privileges. And also upon reinstatement, the current law requires a $100 fee for each charge a person has, and this bill would require the court assess one $100 reinstatement fee for each case, only collected after the person has been determined eligible for reinstatement. And I'd answer any questions the committee has.
Does anyone have any questions at this point? See none. Representative Hoheisel, you have a motion?
I'll make the motion to start off to pass out HB 2193 favorably.
Okay, is there a second to that? Seconded by Representative Francis. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have 2 amendments, if I may.
Sure.
Chris, let's do the Supreme Court one first.
Sounds good. I'll pull it up now.
Thank you, sir. And if you... The Supreme Court one, so the first one we'll do is on the 4th, looks like our 5th page. It just has one box on or after July 1, 2021. And then it strikes some language. So that would be the first one we're doing of the 2. And if Chris, if you want to, Mr. Chair, if I could have the reviser explain.
Yes. Chris, please explain for us, please.
Yes, so on page 5, that's the only change on this amendment. Essentially, there's no date attached to when this new system for the reinstatement fees would apply. This would just specify that for any citation that's on and after July 1, 2021, it would be on the per case basis.
Okay. Is there a second to the amendment? Second by Representative Francis. Further discussion on the amendment? Representative Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, just looking at the last page, page 6, does this time change, you're going to reflect any onto that time change is on page 6 of July 1st, 2019? They're going to conflict?
So that change is actually, that's current law. That's a I shouldn't say conflict because that's the word you just used, but that was a conflicting statute. Statute was amended twice, I think in 2019. So that provision's already in current law. So it shouldn't affect that in any way. I think it's kind of a separate sort of change.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions? Representative Francis.
So, and this might be more for the reviser, or maybe for the carrier of the amendment. What exactly does this do again?
So, Mr. Chairman, in committee, we heard from the Kansas Supreme Court. I think Sean Jergerson joined us about some issues that the original bill, the intent was to go back kind of retroactively to apply this to, I believe it was 2018. What this does is just establishing that July 1, 2021 is when this will go into effect, and it will only apply to I guess, suspended driver's license that are suspended after 2021. Is that accurate, Chris? As far as this applying to that?
Yes, that is. Yes, that is correct. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, the issue Sean brought up was, we currently have a backlog of suspended driver's license, yes. But those payments from like 2018 are currently in debt collections. And so they would have to go back, bring all those out of debt collections, recalculate that, and then go back into it. So this just clears it up and saying, okay, we'll just apply this to everything after July 1, 2021.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
You've heard the motion by Representative Hoheisel to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We're back on the bill as amended. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have one final amendment. And body of this will be the separate amendment, I guess. And Mr. Chair, if I could have the reviser explain this one as well.
Do we have a second on that motion? Representative Francis is second. Thank you. Reviser?
Yes, Mr. Chair, 1 second, I'm pulling it up.
That's quite all right.
Okay. So the amendment starts on page 2. This would change that additional suspension period back to the original 90 days that is under current law. The portion related to failure to comply is not being modified. It's just for any conviction that the division receives outside of failure to comply. Page 3, this all kind of deals with the new payment plan program that the amendment is setting up. Basically, it's going to allow people, well, what this amendment on page 3 would do is alter the definition of what failure to comply means. So it could be appear before any district or municipal court in response to a traffic citation, or enter a plea with the clerk of the court prior to their assigned court date. And if pleading guilty, pay any fine and court costs. There are similar amendments made there. And then going on to page 4, the large one kind of in the middle, these are basically, these are disqualifiers for restricted driving privileges. It looks like we're adding all new language, but really what we're striking there in subsection or paragraph B there, that's just being added to new paragraph C. And we're taking off the 4th item on the disqualifiers for restricted driving privileges, which means that the individual has not previously received a state suspension as a result of driving while suspended conviction. So that last item is taken off for the disqualifiers for that. And then kind of the more extensive new language. This is a brand new section that will be added into the bill. This sets up somewhat of a payment program that people could enter into with the court. There's like kind of a formula involved with what they're liable to pay if they enter into one of these payment agreements. There are certain orders the court shall order on top of the payment program, and then the section would also specify certain situations where this section wouldn't apply. So it wouldn't apply to any non-traffic warrants or people arrested or people whose license has been suspended or revoked due to like DUIs or something similar. Then going on to section 4, this is amending a current statute, and it would add in sort of somewhat corresponding changes to the payment program. Basically information that has to appear on a citation or notice to appear for traffic citations. So they have to be, basically the person receiving the traffic citation has to be given the phone number and email address of the clerk of the court of jurisdiction. and be given the opportunity to enter a plea with the clerk, similar to what we already discussed. So that was kind of a quick overview, but I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Questions? Representative Delberdang.
Thank you, Chairman, and appreciate the explanation from the reviser. I'm just curious, looking at the items that are struck, specifically on page 3, the question is, if this thing goes through, have we just taken all the teeth out of the ability to actually impose or receive these fines? In other words, what's the penalty if person gets a violation and a fine and they just plain don't pay it? I mean, what's the repercussion, or what can we do there?
If I think maybe that question was directed at me.
Yes.
So in B1, so you'll see that we strike pay all fines, court costs, and any penalties. So now if they don't enter a plea with the court, similar to what this definition in subsection A states, then within 30 days, the division can still suspend driving privileges. So it's not totally striking some of the repercussions of not paying, if that makes sense.
Is that part of what the new section 3 says? I mean, it's quite long to sit here and read through at this point, but.
Yeah, those are related, and basically they describe it as a plea. I don't know if that's necessarily the correct term, but yeah, it's related to, like, someone could enter into a plea for a payment plan with the court.
Thank you.
Further questions? Representative Helgerson.
Did you happen to run this by any of the conferees or the sponsors of the bill?
So I
think
did,
that this had some lengthy, discussions about trying to work out the language.
yeah, thank you for that, Representative. Yeah, I've talked to numerous conferees on this. Going back to the 90 days from the 30 days was a request from Ed Klump. So that was kind of agreed to upon as well. And most of this language we took from the Senate version, Senate Bill 100, and most of it's been, just about all of it's been at least agreed upon between both sides, Kansas Appleseed, Americans for Prosperity, the proponents of it. So as far as I know, they're okay with the language. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a compromise, but it's an agreement. And this helps address some of the, like I said, with Ed Klump and his concerns as well.
I understand about the changing the date. What exactly are you trying to change in this,
I think,
in layman's terms?
I mean, there's a couple of different things. We're putting in the ability to access a payment plan. We're putting in, language for a structure of the payment plan and stuff like that. I think this amendment fundamentally makes this bill better while addressing concerns from both sides. And it does not address antique tags at all.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listening very carefully, and you said both sides, and I think you mentioned Americans for Prosperity and blah, 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 and they agreed somewhat. So I guess I want you to follow up on what.
I guess I don't want to classify it as a compromise, but it was more of an agreement. Okay. There's obviously provisions in this bill that they would like to change to make it more favorable and liking to them. But I believe that this is a fair agreement between both sides, a good faith agreement to get this across the floor and at least get this initially addressed with suspended driver's license. Almost a good first step.
Okay. I'm trying to think what other question I want to ask about it. What would be wrong with this bill without these amendments?
Well, I think we heard in testimony, especially with Ed Klump on the 30 to 90 days, and their objections with law enforcement on that. And then the other ones, again, we're putting in a payment plan and a way to access the payment plan, a clear path to a payment plan to get folks that are in noncompliance to get them into compliance. And I think this version, again, this is most of this contents of this is taken from Senate Bill 100 that was introduced into the Senate. So this kind of lines it up with that one as well. That's moving its way through the Senate.
Mr. Chairman.
Did you have further questions, Representative Ballard? Okay. Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I can add a little bit to this, I think all committee members heard from some of the conferees by email on Tuesday, February 16th. There was an email, and from what I understand, all of these groups support this amendment. That includes the Kansas Chamber, the Americans for Prosperity, the ACLU, NAACP, Appleseed, and the National Fines and Fees Organization, plus the Racial Profiling Advisory Board of Wichita. So I think it has broad support, just to clear up any confusion on this amendment.
Thank you. Are there further questions or comments? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the great discussion, committee. Obviously, suspended driver's license are an important issue down in my area in Wichita. I believe I saw a story on the news not too long ago that half the state's suspended driver's license come from Sedgwick County alone. So this is an issue that I want to take care of. I think this amendment is the right path to help address that. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll close.
You heard the motion by Representative Hoheisel to amend House Bill 2193. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We're back on House Bill 2193 as amended. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel, will you renew your motion with the amendments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I renew my motion to pass out HB 2193 as amended.
Second, good with that? Representative Francis? Okay, there's been a motion and a second to pass House Bill 2193 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We'll move on to House Bill 2245. And Mr. Wagner, Revisor Wagner, when you're ready, would you brief us, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Committee House Bill 2245 will permit the Division of Vehicles to collect emergency contact information as part of driver's license records and applications, and allows law enforcement agencies to use this information in the cases of injury or death of a license holder. The division has to start collecting this data by no later than July 1, 2022. The bill specifies that the information will be confidential except for permitted motor vehicle records disclosures under current law. The bill also requires the division to design license applications in a way to allow an applicant to provide that emergency contact information of not more than 2 individuals, and include a statement on the application as to the confidentiality of the records, and also allow a form on their website to allow the license holder or an authorized agent to add, amend, or delete emergency contact information. And this would apply to anyone who holds a valid driver's license, instruction permit, or non-driver's identification card. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Questions for the reviser? See none? Okay. Committee, what's your pleasure on House Bill 2245? Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we pass out HB 2245 favorably.
Second by Representative Ballard. Is there discussion or more questions? Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope you indulge me. I do have a question that just came to me. In the hearing we had earlier on this bill, I think it was indicated that this is strictly voluntary. Is that correct?
Advisor Wagner.
That is correct. It's not required for someone to provide that information, just allowed.
Right. So with that in mind, how is this going to be communicated to the general public that has driver's licenses or a Kansas ID? How are they going to find out about this program? Is it when they renew it, or how's that going to work?
So yeah, the bill says an application for an original, renewal, or duplicate. So whenever they go in to renew your driver's license, or I don't know how it could be communicated otherwise other than on original or renewals, but yeah, this will be a part of that process, in my understanding.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Chairman. To the reviser, to follow up on the previous question, will any of the emergency contact information actually show on the license, or is it something that's in the DMV records only?
Yeah, the bill doesn't specify where, but I believe it would just be part of the records. I don't think it would be on the license itself. It would be able to be accessed by law enforcement.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Further questions? Hearing none. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
You've heard the motion by Representative Hoheisel to move House Bill 2245. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Move on to House Bill 2295. Revisor Wagner, when you're ready.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, House Bill 2295 would exempt municipal motor grader vehicles from the Kansas Uniform Commercial Driver's License Act. The act currently provides certain exemptions for vehicles from the Uniform Act. And as I said, this bill will just create a new exemption for motor grader vehicles operated by an employee of a municipality if such employee is operating the motor grader vehicle within the boundaries of such municipality. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the reviser? Representative Helgerson.
You said there are some other exemptions. What are those exemptions?
Yes, sorry, hold on. I'm pulling up the statute or so right now there's exemptions for military vehicles operated by military personnel, vehicles operated by firefighters, or farm vehicles with certain restrictions. They're registered as a farm truck or truck tractor. So those are just some of the examples.
Okay, thank you.
And I know I'm going to, this is for Mr. Selk with the Department of Revenue. Sorry to put you on the spot, but there's been question of whether this will jeopardize any federal funds that we might draw down. And I would just like your take on that again today, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Ken Selk with the Kansas Division of Eagles. No, we reached out to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and they have no issue with this bill at all. So we are good standing with them.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for clearing that up for me and for others.
You're welcome, sir.
Are there other questions? Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That brings up something I just thought. The operators of this grader have to be within the confines of the city limits or the limits of the jurisdiction, correct? Is that what you said when they're operating it?
Yes, that's correct. Within the municipality, which is a defined term. That's not just cities. It includes like counties and certain other zoning districts and
Jurisdiction of the person of the entity that's operating that vehicle is that jurisdiction's property, correct? They have to operate that within the confines of it.
correct. Yeah, they have to operate within the municipality that they're employed by.
Do any of these municipalities, just thinking about this, hire third-party contractors to do road or bridge work within those jurisdictions? And how will this affect that? If they're not employed, if they are not an employee of that jurisdiction?
The bill only specifies employees of the municipality. So, yeah, for independent contractors, I don't think that they would be defined as an employee of the municipality per se. So they might not be exempted from CDL requirements.
So you're saying that that this wouldn't apply to them, or they're not covered under the auspices of this bill?
They would not be, basically the exemption would not apply to them. They would, independent contractors would probably need to have a CDL.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hauser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Working for a large construction company, I don't think all of our operators have a CDL license. And sometimes we do not put them on a trailer, we road them down the road. So will that affect our business?
No, Representative, I believe an exemption already exists. I don't think it's specified in this law, but I think it's specified in the federal law that off-road construction equipment that's just used incidentally on the roads are already exempted from CDL requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there further questions? Seeing none. Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we pass out HB 2295 favorably.
Is there a second? Representative Neely. Is there a second? Are there other further questions? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
You've heard the motion to pass House Bill 2295 favorably out of committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Last item on our business is House Bill 2379. And Revisor Wagner, we've been working you pretty hard, but when you're ready, please go ahead.
Yes, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee House Bill 2379 was the bill we heard yesterday that would enact the Peer-to-Peer Vehicle Sharing Act. Creates multiple new definitions. The main one being peer-to-peer vehicle sharing means the authorized use of a shared vehicle by an individual other than the shared vehicle's owner through a peer-to-peer vehicle sharing program, which is a business platform that connects owners with drivers to enable these sharing transactions. There are certain insurance provisions in the bill that kind of specifies who has the primary coverage and when the periods would apply for when those particular insurance policies would apply. The vehicle sharing program would have to ensure that the owner and driver have a motor vehicle insurance policy with minimum amounts in Kansas, are required in Kansas. There are also certain provisions related to what disclosures the vehicle sharing program is required to make to the owner and driver. Certain situations with safety recalls, provisions that pertain to driver's license and requires, the driver of a shared vehicle to operate with a Kansas driver's license or have a driver's license in another state or country that if they meet the legal age required to drive in Kansas. And finally, some of the amendments in the Kansas Collision Damage Waiver Act would be amended to exclude these shared vehicles from those terms such as lessor, lessee, and rental agreement to try and kind of differentiate those separate types of transactions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Are there questions for the reviser? Seeing none at this point, thank you. Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee recommend House Bill 2379 favorable for passage.
Seconded by Representative Hoheisel. Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment, and Representative Francis is passing it out right now. It looks very extensive, but I joked around, almost like a gut and go, but it's not that bad when you get into it. What that does is it updates INCOIL, which is the National Council of Interstate Legislators model for the final red line. It includes changes to the model which were agreed to by Turo, APCIA, NAMIC, Allstate Insurance, Get Around TechNet, some of which we heard from the other day. It also resolves the concerns raised by the Kansas Auto Dealers Association and effectively exempts them from the bill. And then there's the third thing, where there was a change requested by General Motors to address an issue related to their truck fleet product. Stand for questions.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Francis on the amendment. Are there questions? Seeing none. Representative, you may close.
That was easier than I thought. I close on the bill, or the amendment, I'm sorry.
You've heard the motion by Representative to move his amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We're back on the bill as amended. Is there further discussion? Representative Francis.
This doesn't go strictly to the specifics of this bill, but I want to bring everybody's attention to one of the things that happens across the state. I'm very much in favor of this new technology. I think it makes things work a lot better. But one of the things we need to be aware of as technology changes, we also have to change our taxing statutes in Kansas. And one of the things that happens with this is rental companies are charged sales tax, and they also pay an excise fee. Whether this entity should be charged an excise fee or not is debatable without a doubt. But one of the things that does happen is the individual that is sharing their car is liable for the taxes on these, not the actual market facilitator. And so later on some session, we're going to discuss a market facilitator bill. And that bill is needed not because it's a new tax, but because new forms of commerce have taken place across the United States because of technology. And we have to modify our taxing system as a result of that. So I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that is the need for that market facilitator bill if it ever makes it to the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Representative Delperdang, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I close on, for the bill number, House Bill 2379 as amended.
You've heard the motion by Representative Delper Dang to pass House Bill 2379 as amended favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Wagner from the Revisor's Office.
Yes.
If you don't mind, I just like to ask in this instance, because these are extensive definition changes, I just want to try and create some uniformity, so I might do some technical work on those definitions, but the substance will stay the same. I just wanted approval from the committee.
I think that's very good. That'll save us from coming back next year and trying to fix things that you could have fixed to start with. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Committee, I appreciate all your hard work this first half of the session. And I look forward to working with you after turnaround. So we'll have another group of bills. I don't think it'll be quite as extensive as what we had the first half, but thank you again for your participation and your help. With that, we are adjourned.